Hey guys, it's George here with a little video to answer the questions that popped up on the nutrition thread for the Reading Half Marathon 2016. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to go through the questions as in the order that they came in, and I'm going to do my very best to answer them. I've obviously had a flick through them, but I haven't really haven't necessarily prepared anything, so this is just on the fly, off the cuff, and we'll see what we can come up with. I'm just going to dive straight into it so we can get through as much as possible in the next however long it takes. So let's have a look. First of all, we've got Claire Leverage asking, I guess my biggest worry is when to test out my nutrition. Does it have to be just on long runs? Because those are getting fewer in the run-up today. Not leaving too many opportunities to try things out. So yes, here's the thing. You do want to try out your race day nutrition, and we've got 3 weeks to go now to the race. You don't have to do it on the longest long runs, but certainly I'd probably say next weekend, as in 2 weeks to go. That's when you don't want to leave it too much later than that. That said, if you do turn up on the day and you haven't done any practice whatsoever, don't worry too much about it, because you have practiced. Because as long as you've done some kind of a long run, you will have a strategy. Whether it's optimum or not is another matter, but you've done something that you know to work for you, so that's what you need to go with. And actually, that's probably going to be the answer for a lot of the other questions that we come up against in a second. First of all, when it comes to race day nutrition, is don't worry about it. Don't overcomplicate it. Just keep it really, really simple, and you can't go far wrong. You can go wrong, but you can't go far wrong. So that's my advice for that one, Claire. Try and get a long run in. Don't have to practice it loads and loads of times. Just get something that you feel confident with. I think that's the most important thing. And as you've said here, just kind of going for, I'm also conscious something does have an adverse effect on my tummy, which is your biggest fear. Again, there we go. That's about confidence and beliefs about what might happen. Then it could turn negatively, affect a long training run. So don't try, you don't want to go in it having never done any sort of sports nutrition product and all of a sudden have like 10 energy gels an hour, because you're pretty much asking for trouble if you do that. So just try something. Start off low with maybe just one gel or whatever it is, what products you're going to try. Just try one or two, whatever you feel like you're able to do on the day. And go for that. You've also said, I'm afraid that this not knowing where to start has led me to not really doing anything except carrying some squash and a small amount of salt in it for my long runs. So no, it's not a confusing question at all. And actually, if that's worked for you, then do that. You don't have to. Not everybody will be taking copious amounts of maltodextrin based sports nutrition products on the day. Many people will be doing it with no extra fuel whatsoever, or just with water. Some people won't even take on water. That's not to say they're the best strategies, but you want to find that strategy that works for you. And it sounds like you've actually got something already, so I won't worry too much about it. Perhaps try with one gel in an hour, see if that has any effect. If it doesn't, or even has a negative effect, then just don't do it on the day. That's my best advice for that one, Claire. But that sounds like it's a much more of a confidence-based question than a how to optimize question. And bottom line is, you want to be confident going into the race. And this is such a small thing. It doesn't have to be something that worries you. Next up, Dave Knox. Being told to forget about pasta, etc. before the race, and maybe not eat a lot before the race as well. Try gels, not sure about them. What is the best the morning of the race? So the morning of the race itself, and actually your question, Dave, goes into the 24 hours prior to the race. What do you eat the day before? Specifically the night before. And it's a really big myth that runners need to pile their plates high with pasta and potatoes and loads of bread and all that other high carb produce the night before to carb up. You don't have to do that. And in fact, if you haven't been doing that for your regular long training runs, then don't do it for the race, because it's not, even if it is potentially going to help you by making sure your glycogen stores are tanked up, then the chances are, if it's something different, something new to your body, you might wake up in the morning with stomach cramps because you just loaded up with all this wheat and pasta and all the rest of it. So don't worry. And actually, your question isn't related to that. Your question says that you've been told to forget about that. So I kind of agree with that, but I wouldn't go to the extreme where not eat before the race as well. If you've got a breakfast that's been working for you before you go out for your long runs, or any training run that you do in the morning for that matter, then that's your race day breakfast. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. You don't suddenly do something different just because you're racing. So I do know runners who don't have anything to eat before they run, and that actually helps with their performance. But most people, if you're used to eating and then you don't eat, you're going to run into trouble, especially as the race doesn't get going till 10. You might not be crossing the start line till 10:30, depending on your start, what pen you're in. So that's a long time. You're not going to be finished before lunchtime. If you haven't eaten since the night before and you're not used to that, then you could run into problems with that. So just take care with that one. Roshni asks, I am a new runner. Yay! Reading being your second half marathon. Well, not that new then, Roshni. You're a seasoned runner by the sounds of it. If you've done a couple, this is your second half. I am planning an average of 11 minutes a mile. How much gel would I consume and when? What is your opinion on shot blocks? Well, shot blocks, jelly babies, gels, they're all just a source of readily available carbohydrates. So don't get too bogged down with which ones are better than others. Some will have caffeine and other things in, and we'll come on to that because I think there's a question about that later on. But in general, it comes down to how much carbohydrate are you consuming, and is it in a format that your body can accept, that you're happy to consume, like a gel. You just squeeze it in and swallow it down. With a shot block, there's a little bit of chewing involved. Jelly babies, a bit more chewing. Energy drinks, there's no chewing, you just drink it. So it depends on what works best for you. And again, it comes down to experimenting. Now, if you're doing 11-minute mile pace, then that's going to be around about 2:30, I think, around the 2:30 mark, just under 2:30, 2:20 perhaps. I'm not quite sure on the calcs for that. So you're going to be out there for a decent length of time. If you are practicing this weekend, then I would, again, start off with maybe a gel or two every 40 minutes. The advice I used to give, and it's actually still a pretty good starting point, is to take some kind of an energy gel. If you're going down the traditional route, take an energy gel, about 60 grams an hour. So when I did my one and only sub-3 marathon, I was taking 2 energy gels, the equivalent of 2 energy gels, because sometimes it was jelly babies or sports drinks, 2 every 40 minutes. So what was that? I think it worked out something like 20 grams of carbs every, or 40 grams of carbs every 20 minutes, every 40 minutes, sorry. And every 20 minutes, I was taking 250 mils of water as well. So that was my base. That's what I trained with, and that's what I did in the day. Now, if you haven't been training with that, then don't, for goodness sake, try and do that on the day. You just get used to it. And there was a really good video with Chrissy Wellington that a friend of mine, Warren Pohl from 33shake.com, and that's a completely different strategy for refueling on the run, because it's what I use now, which is energy from chia seeds, and it's fats and protein for fuel instead of high carbs. So it's very different, and I definitely wouldn't recommend starting with that at this late stage, but it is something to consider for the future. But anyway, there's a video that he put out with Chrissy Wellington, who is the world record holder for Ironman, and she's won the world champs of Ironman 4 times. So she knows a thing or two about sports nutrition. And one of the key takeaway messages that I took from the video that I watched is that your body will get used to whatever you get it used to. So if you're used to training with loads of carbs in loads of water when you're running, then it will need that on the day. Whereas if you reduce the amount that you're taking and you get used to relying on your own fuel sources, your own fat stores, then your body will be better at doing that. You keep on putting carbs in at the top end, then it's going to burn that off, and it's going to be looking for those energy pathways that are going to use your glycogen stores, your muscle glycogen. So if you get it used to not relying on that, i.e. training without as much and relying on fat for fuel, then it becomes more adept at using those energy pathways instead. So there's lots of, that's not something 3 weeks out from the race you want to be monkeying about with, but certainly it's worth investigating, because I last year I did a 100-mile ultra race, and although I took carbs on during my training, I was almost exclusively using Warren's 33 Shake products. So there's got to be something in that. Okay, let's have a look. Moving on. Samantha Addison asks, on a 2-hour training runs, I've been feeling better without eating much, but as my half is likely to be nearer 3 hours, is that likely to make a difference? Again, great question. You've been training successfully up to 2 hours, and now you're going to be doing an extra 60 minutes. Are you going to be okay to continue without taking anything on? My guess, and it is just a guess, is that you would be fine. However, 3 hours depends on whether you can go 3 hours normally without eating and feeling absolutely fine. Sounds like if you're doing a couple of hours run and it's not making any, well, as you actually said, you're feeling better without eating much. You say eating much. Now, actually, having really read that question, I don't know if you mean, Samantha, whether that means eating anything at all or just having some small stuff to eat. So eating much suggests that you are having something. So I can't answer that quite as accurately because of that thing I just realised. But let's assume that you're not eating anything at all for 2 hours and you're getting on just fine. Then I would probably suggest for your first half marathon going out with that as your strategy. If you haven't practiced taking something on within the 2 hours, then you don't want to really start doing that on a day, because that could be a very uncomfortable last 60 minutes. And who knows, you might be quicker than that anyway. Simone says, hi there, can you please explain how the protein shakes are good for me after training and why everybody's talking bad things about the protein shakes? Well, I'm not sure who everyone is to start off with. It depends really with protein shakes. It depends on what protein shakes you're talking about, because if you're taking on something that's got loads of other crap added to it, like additives and sweeteners and preservatives and this chemical and that additive, then no, that's probably not the best thing for you to be putting into your body. It's not very natural. However, a protein shake, yes, it's been processed, and something like hemp protein or pea protein, disgusting though they may taste, are actually pretty good for your body because it's just very pure source of protein from those plants. If you go down the whey protein line, again, if you're taking on a protein, then just take the protein. Don't take the ones with added this and added that and carbs this and recovery shakes that. Make your own recovery shakes up. Just add the protein to bananas or almond butter, peanut butter, coconut oil, chia seeds. Chuck it all in there, blitz it up, and the protein will help boost your protein levels, because ultimately, runners, we don't tend to get enough protein. And unless you're eating enough meat and you're getting plenty of plant-based protein as well, which is very hard to do, then a protein shake can help. It's not necessary, it's not essential, but if your protein levels are quite low anyway, then no, it's not a bad way to do it. Certainly there's nothing wrong with protein shakes or protein shakes in a principle, but certainly there are lots of protein shakes that you probably want to steer clear of, and they're the ones that are generally geared towards, ironically, sports nutrition and the bodybuilding market as well, unless you want to get really, really big, and even then it's easy to do that in a much more natural way. So good question though. Sue, just one other point on that, Simone. Just watch out for what everybody says, because what everyone says isn't necessarily the right thing. You even want to do your due diligence with the things that I say, because they're going to just be my opinions, and yes, they're based on experience and knowledge and understanding, but you could put me up against 10 other people and everybody would have a different opinion and a different way of doing it, and they would all probably work. So it's about finding something that works for you. I know plenty of coaches who extol the virtues of protein shakes and plenty who don't. And you speak to someone who works for a sports nutrition company or is in some way otherwise involved with a sports nutrition company, and they're going to say the same thing. They're going to say the thing that ticks other boxes. So watch out for hidden agendas. Sue says, best foods to be eating in the week before and the morning of the race. Also fluids, how much before and during the race. Okay, couple of questions there, Sue. Both very good ones. One of them I've already kind of answered. The foods to be eating in the week before, the best thing actually is to just avoid eating, not eating in general, but avoid eating and drinking foods that are likely gonna cause problems. Like, you probably wouldn't want to go out for a Chinese takeaway in the couple of days leading up to the event, just in case. You just don't know what's gonna happen, and you want to give your body as much nutrition as possible. Remember, the week or two leading up, it's prime recovery time. You want your body to recover and to be in the best shape possible. So give it all the nutrients that it needs to help finish off that rebuilding process. On the morning of the race, just whatever you're used to taking on. Fluids, once more, you don't really want to, if you're not used to drinking very much water, don't get there on race day and start chugging down litres of water, because you're going to be wanting the loo all the way around the course, and that's not going to do your time any favours. So build up your drinking from now, build it up. If you don't think you're drinking enough, increase, and then on the day itself, quite a good tip is to not drink anything for the 30 to 45 minutes before the gun goes, because go for a wee and then go and hit the start line, because then at least you've emptied your bladder and you're less likely to be standing on the start line thinking, oh no, I need a wee, because you've been drinking water for the last hour. So cut your drinking about an hour before, but make sure you're getting plenty in before that, but not much more than normal. Make sure you are properly hydrated, but hydration won't happen on the day. It'll happen the 48 hours prior to the race, which means you've got to be spending Friday and Saturday drinking a little bit extra to make sure that those hydration levels are elevated. And then during the race, again, just whatever you practice with. A good starting point is something along the lines of 125 to 250 mils of fluids every 20 minutes. So drinking regularly. Listen to your body. You'll get to tune in. That's a starting point. It's not going to be the same for everybody, but the best advice is to tune in to what your body needs. So find out what your body needs, and by responding to the triggers of thirst, the triggers of hunger. Are you craving salty foods? Are you craving sweet foods? And then respond to that with the nutrition that you take on. For a half marathon, the nutrition is going to be less important, but certainly hydration. It's going to be important, but you don't necessarily need to. You won't be craving salty foods as much as you would do if you're doing a marathon or beyond. But you'll definitely, or very likely, you'll be wanting to take something on during a race. The hydration, however, you probably find that you will get thirsty, and you want to respond to that as and when it happens. But once more, you've got to practice that. Some people don't take any water on at all when they're doing a half marathon. Some people will take on loads and loads of water. It's whatever works best for you. We've got Victoria. What you should use energy gels or jelly babies and how often? Again, answered that one earlier, Victoria, and you had a second question there, which was just the word diet, but actually that wasn't a question. And actually, sorry, you did have a follow-up after a bit of back and forth there. Wanted to know how many and at what time you should use them, i.e. after X amount of time or miles. Not been using anything and wondered if it would help your performance. So here's the thing, it might help your performance. It might help, and that's the thing, it might help, but it won't necessarily. It might help your performance, and it is something you want to try out before you race. You can't, you know what, if you know that you've got a pretty strong stomach and you don't really get problems with gastrointestinal issues, then try it out on race day. But just know that there is that risk that something might go wrong, and it's probably not the best environment for that to happen in, because the pressure's on. Happens in the long run. You don't want it to happen then either, but hey, at least it hasn't scuppered your chances of your personal best time that you've been training for 3 months. So yeah, your starting point is, let me just get rid of that. Your starting point is something along the lines of 40 to 60 grams of carbs an hour. And start off with that, and if you find that's too much, then cut it down. If you feel like you're still kind of flagging for energy, then build it up again. I suspect rather that given the tone of your question, you haven't been using anything at the moment, and so that might be your best bet for this particular race. Although you might want to, if you've got time this weekend, to experiment with taking something on. Next up, we've got Melanie asks, personally, I eat as usual on race day. Good. Make sure I have plenty of water and carbs leading up to the race. Never tried gels, rely on my jellies. Okay, so that's not a question, it's a point, and it does sound like you're, as I commented there, it does sound like you're sorted. Jen says, I'm a jelly baby girl as well. Jelly babies are fine, and I believe it's 4.2 grams of carbohydrates per baby. I remember that number because that is what I was using when I was doing training for a marathon all those years ago. Yeah, okay, actually Melanie did have a question, which was, not sure if it's nutrition related or not. On occasions when running, you do get severe stomach cramps right across the belly button to the point where I sometimes have to stop running. Could this be a stitch or perhaps dehydration, as I don't tend to drink much whilst out running? It could be cramp. It could be some kind of a stitch / cramp, in which case you want to address, like the lady who... Sorry, my startup disk filled up just midway through the recording there, so I just emptied some files and I can continue. So I was just saying there, Melanie, about your stomach cramps that you're getting. It does sound like it could be something related to hydration or salt levels. So once more, that's something to test out. If it happens the same point of a training run every single time or the same time, like 2 hours in or an hour in, then that does kind of give you a bit more of an indication, something that you want to be investigating and experimenting with, taking on more fluids if you're currently not. Lauren says, this is your first half marathon, was wondering what is best to eat the week before the race and the morning of the race. Currently, I am on a strict food plan, avoiding wheat, sugar, dairy, purchased through your website. Okay, great. Sounds like it's the Clean Food Concepts cookbook. And I wouldn't call that strict. But anyway, the point is, just do what you're doing. So if you're eating like that right the way through to the race, then continue eating like that. That is a very nutrient-dense nutrition program. So you want to be eating like that. You want to have a load of really high-quality nutrients, veggies, fruits, and so on. Get the carbs in there as well. You probably want to increase the carbs over what most people would, but you don't have to go crazy. I think that's the key with this. Carbs are fine for runners in particular, but you don't need to absolutely cram them onto your plates. You're eating piles and piles of the things. Roshni, another question here. I have another question about gels. Tried caffeine gel. Oh, here we go with caffeine on my 11-mile run and non-caffeine gel on my 8-mile run by Science in Sport. I thought I was very alert and buzzing to go to the 11-mile run and not so much in the 8-mile. Is it just, I think you said after that, is it just my imagination, or is there something in that? Now, caffeine has been tested out and proven to have an effect on a couple of things, mainly your rate of perceived exertion. However, these tests were done with very specific quantities of caffeine ingested in a very specific way by elite level athletes in a controlled lab condition environment, and they were administered as a particular duration before the actual exertion took place, before the experiment took place. It wasn't done in a race situation by runners like you and I, who are going out there to try and get the edge, if you will. So it might be psychosomatic, it might be something that actually is happening, but on the race day, the research that I've read on caffeine and gels is that actually on race day, the adrenaline you have probably pretty much counters out any increase in rate of in your perception of exertion. And the way it works is it numbs your RPE. So what might be an 8.5 normally might be a 7.5 or an 8, which means you can work a little harder, but you pay that back. All caffeine does is it blocks the receptors in your brain that say I'm tired, but that doesn't do that forever. Eventually that's gonna come off. That's why you suddenly crash. You've been drinking a lot of coffee in the morning, you hit the wall and then you crash. Now you don't want that to happen in the race, so you've got to be a little bit careful about that. And it's not going to have such a big effect in a race, as it might do in a regular race, a regular training run. So again, it all comes down to experiment. That's such a cop-out, isn't it, when I say that, oh, just experiment. But you really do. There is some science behind it, but do your due diligence. And in that case, in this sense, it means practice it. And it sounds like you are. So if it works for you, it doesn't matter whether it's psychosomatic. If it's working for you, then do it on the day, and it'll be fine. Sarah says, I'm worried about what I need to eat the morning of the race and during. At the moment, I'm running 2 hours for 10 miles and not eating anything specific before. And not having water during. I'm worried that during the race I'll be tempted to eat the jelly babies. Yeah, there will be jelly babies on offer, and there'll be gels on offer as well, and probably sports drinks on offer. And if you're not used to taking them, Sarah, then just don't be tempted. Just to go with the flow. Go with what you're used to doing. Now, you say you're not used to eating anything specific beforehand, but you probably are eating something. And just note down a couple of things that have worked for you and go with them. So on the day of the morning itself, whatever has not caused you problems, then have that the morning of the race. So be quite mindful of that. Chris asks, is water enough to keep you going through a half marathon distance? Absolutely it is. I really struggle to keep any food down. Yeah, no, you don't have to have anything at all to eat. Just be aware though, Chris, depending on what time you normally run and train in the mornings, the race, as I said, won't get going until 10 o'clock at the earliest. So you might be sort of 10:30 when you cross that start line. If you're used to running at 7 or 8 in the morning, then that's another 2 hours you have to contend with there. If you were to eat something at 6 or 6:30 a.m., you've got 4 hours there to get that digestive system going and kind of get some fuel in the tank. But it's up to you. It depends on how you've been approaching your nutrition up to now. So yeah, and there is a pub at the bottom of Russell Street that gives 3 pints of beer away, or a small glass of beer away anyway. And I've seen runners at the 1:30 end, so runners going for a sub 90-minute half marathon, stopping and drinking beer and then continuing up the damn hill, which is not necessarily recommended, though pretty impressive. Harriet Grieve says, loving all these questions. Generally, I'm good with eating, but have been off the wagon due to family member being very ill. Okay, think I can notice the difference of eating crap for the last few weeks. Is 3 weeks enough time to make a bit of difference? Absolutely. Even a week, even a few days of good, healthy, clean eating, your body will cleanse, it will detox, it will get rid of all the rubbish. So take your time, or start now, if you can, and just get on the wagon, get the clean eating going. Just think you're doing all this training. Just a few little tweaks to your nutrition can have a really, really big impact on how well you perform on the day. for no extra training. So it's like free speed. You could knock a few minutes off your time, potentially, depending on what your target is, just by eating the right foods. Gillian asks, last year I needed to be at the start before 9, as your daughter was doing Green Park Challenge. Had some porridge at 7, then nothing until the end of the race. Didn't help the fact that I was didn't cross the start line until 10:30. Okay, there we go. 10:30, you're crossing the line. By the end of the run, nothing left for the tank. What's the best thing for me to pack that could give me energy I need to finish? Bananas, any energy bars like Naked bars, or anything at all you've been used to using and eating and you don't know isn't going to cause a problem. Maybe even take some breakfast, some porridge, or soaked oats in a little Tupperware container that you can have at sort of 8 o'clock. Or 9 o'clock, or just after the Green Park Challenge, or just before it. So take something with you that you do feel confident. It's not like there's one magic. Or if you have a nut allergy, then the Naked bars aren't going to be much good. My son has a nut allergy, and it's a flipping can be a nightmare to try and find that kind of food. But yes. Take something with you that you know isn't going to cause any negative reactions, but it's going to give you that energy. Soaked oats, where you soak oats in water or almond milk or hemp milk or something like that for a couple of hours. Chuck in some raisins, chuck in some, again, almond milk, no good for you, but hemp milk will be fine. Chuck in some raisins, chuck in some coconut, chuck in some chopped apple. And that's a great, mix in some yogurt perhaps, that's a great breakfast to have, and you can just tuck it in a Tupperware container and take it with you. Hazel says, how do you consume an energy gel on the run without getting into a sticky mess? That's just you, Hazel. Everyone else finds it really easy. Sorry. Next question, Jen. Now, it is a bit of a skill to it, and the worst thing is you get kind of sticky hands. They're already a bit sweaty, and you can't ever quite wash them off, even if you chuck water all over them. So yeah, you just gotta maybe pack some wet wipes with you. Take them in a little race pack. That might help. But yeah, no solution to that as of yet, I'm afraid. Jennifer asks, how much water should I drink beforehand? Answered that question. And during. Always tend to need the loo. Yeah, absolutely. So there we go. Refer back to the previous answer. Also, I can't eat wheat, so wonder what carbs you'd recommend. Okay, no, don't eat. If you don't normally eat wheat, then absolutely you definitely don't want to eat wheat or pasta. But gluten-free pasta, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, rice, quinoa, these are all pretty good substitutes for wheat, and I'd recommend all of them. So, yeah, I'd go with that instead. Yeah, as Rolene Parker suggests, try brown rice and sweet potato instead of pasta and bread. Absolutely. Penny says, really interesting questions. Hopefully you have one to add. Really looking forward to running half. Also forms part of my training towards the Brighton Marathon. I struggle to eat for hours, often all day after a long run. Managed to train myself to keep down a Nestle chocolate milkshake in the first half hour. Any ideas on other stuff that will help with recovery that is not too heavy? I'm afraid with that one, Penny, you're gonna. I'm just going to be guessing here because I don't know what you would regard as being too heavy. You do want to try to have something to eat after a run, and maybe some kind of a shake that's going to put more nutrients in rather than a Nestle chocolate milkshake. If it's just chewing that's the issue, then a recovery shake could be your solution. But again, if you can, make it up yourself rather than relying on shop-bought ones, which generally have other stuff in that you don't really want to have in. Jen says that she's the same. And Emma as well. Can't stomach to eat for a few hours. Personally, I head straight to the pulled pork burger van and have myself one or even two massive pork baguettes, and that's and I don't normally eat bread, but that's normally my post run in Reading. That's the first place I head to. Okay, long run. Just reading through the questions there. I take water with. This is Meredith Miller's response to that question. I take water with me. And with one of those energy tablets, has started taking one of the high five energy bars on my long runs, and so again, it's going to be different for everybody. So there's no one answer for that one, I'm afraid. But you have a second question: what's the best point to use a gel? Beginning the race to get you going, or towards the end when you feel like you need it? If you're looking for a start point, try it 30 to 40 minutes into the run, then take it there. And you might find it gives you a bit of a boost, or it just avoids the dip down there, but only if you're used to eating like that. The more chia seed, natural food, energy products that I use, they're really only going to work if you've been, if the rest of your diet is in line with that as well. Sports nutrition is just nutrition. It's just trying to find something, an extension of that makes it easy to consume on the day. So if your normal diet is high in carbs, high in sugars, high in processed foods, then energy gels will probably be absolutely fine for you. But if your diet is normally very, very clean, low on processed foods, lower on carbs, but not necessarily zero carbs, lower on sugar, and then you have energy gels on the day, you're probably going to have problems with that. But the good news is you'll also be better off, you'll be better able to process the higher quality foods like things, chia seed gels and whatever else. Bailey has a question. I've been reading about low carb, high fat diet, which sounds similar to the old Atkins diet. Whilst the evidence suggests improved running, it is hard to identify if there were not other influencing factors like general improvement. I'm also wary of diets that can make you ketotic. What are your thoughts on this latest diet? Well, low carb diet it's not really a new thing. If you look at the paleo diet, it's pretty much the same as that, but paleo's got a few other little nuances, and that's, let's face it, been around for millennia. So what I'd suggest is, I can't say that there's a massive benefit to suddenly switching to a very, very low carb diet, although I know runners who are very, very talented and are able to do that, and it's fine. But if it's you wouldn't switch to a very low carb, high fat diet purely for athletic performance. It would be for a lifestyle or health perspective, maybe to lose weight as well. It is effective for doing that, and it's not quite the same as Atkins. There are, again, a few other little differences and nuances there, but essentially what you're doing is you're getting your body into more of a fat burning machine rather than a carb burning machine. So that's the my take on that, Bailey. Junaid Abbas, on my long runs I carry a bottle of water in one hand and a Lucozade in the other. Hope there'll be stations along the race course to provide these on the day. Yes, I wanted to know what foods to eat and what to avoid a few days leading up to the race. So, the foods to avoid are things that are going to dehydrate you, high salt foods, caffeinated drinks and foods. Avoid all that because it's just going to drop your hydration levels and make you more susceptible to cramps. So that's the thing to avoid. And anything that you wouldn't normally eat. So keep things quite plain, quite simple, and quite fresh. And on the morning of the race, and any suggestions on what to have during the race. So, if you're used to drinking water and Lucozade, then drink water and Lucozade. It's as simple as that. Don't overcomplicate things. Just go with what you're already doing that is working. And last question on this little thread. Thanks for all the questions, by the way, here. They've been excellent. Warren asks, hi, George, is there anything specific, anything you should be eating or taking a few weeks before a half marathon or full marathon? Does that work? If not, what should you take on the day? So again, I've answered the what should you take on the day question a couple of times. And the cleaner and the healthier and the more nutritionally high nutrition foods you can take in now, the better, because your body's just going to be healthier. And this is what it's all about. It's about getting healthy, feeling good, feeling energized, getting to that start line, having had a good training stint, a good taper, feeling good, ready for the race. Nutrition is a minefield, mainly because there's a lot of bro science. There's a lot of some people saying do this, some people saying do that. There's this diet, there's that diet, there's this sports nutrition company trying to sell you their products, and so on. And you got to pick your way through that. But if you strip out all of that and you just go back to the basics and think you're an experiment of one, practice with something. Just start with something and just take a note of what's working for you. Yes, there may be things that will be better for you, but first and foremost, you need to have a strategy that you know works for you. So you can be confident getting to that start line, or with the food you eat in the morning. It becomes like a ritual. This is what you have first thing in the morning. And it probably won't be that much different to what you normally have. So don't try to overcomplicate it. Look at what you're doing for your long runs. What's getting you through your long runs is probably going to get you through the race itself. Thanks again for all your questions. And if you've got any other questions or anything else, then please do chuck them onto the Facebook group, and I will be more than happy to answer them. And I will be back in touch very soon, actually, with more training stuff for the next 3 weeks before the race, which is all very exciting. So thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.